Music is the art of thinking with sounds and silences, and painting is the art of thinking with forms and shapes. So what Sharon Apparao does is visual and what Anil Srinivasan does is oral. But both are the highest forms of aesthetic expression drawn from very personal experiences.
That's true.
Yeah, and we've been having this really wonderful conversation, but now we're going to come to something which is a little harsh, which is there's always this tussle between aesthetics and the marketplace.
Yes.
And both of you are sort of veterans and struggling with it, battling with it every day. So would you like to say a little bit on the topic? Anything?
It's a problem because sometimes it's the emotion, sometimes it's the intellect, and often the market is not kind to both. So it's a very big struggle for us because today art is about the mind and not about the eye anymore. So people don't look at a new painting that looks like a Ravi Verma and says this is great art. And it's a trend, and things that are difficult are considered art today. Things that are trendy are more intellectual and far more, let's say, they're a lot deeper with a lot behind them. And I think it's not always apparent to the audience when you have works that are so dense and so difficult.
Abstract also.
Yeah, and abstract in their thought and in so many things, and that is hard for the masses. But there are that intellectual group of people who appreciate these works and who relate to them.
And I'm going through this tussle all the time as well. And
so you're saying there is a parallel.
There is, and I've discussed this with Sharon all the time.
There is something that you call popular culture, and we're all trying to rise above the popular culture and try to get to the esoteric level. And there's a very fine line. And I mean, don't you agree?
And I think it's also that one of the things that I constantly worry about is, oh, you know, you do a show which has film music, you don't even have to advertise it, you get people coming in droves. And we do this kind of music, even though it's classical and a lot of it is pretty and it's, you know, it's very nice to hear.
So we are looked down on every time you do a pretty painting exhibition.
And yet it's very difficult to get people to come. So I think the two summary points I get out of that, one is that it is always going to be, I think, fine art, fine music, or even the collision of the two is always going to be the realm of the discerning proportion of the public which sees the value in it. And I think, therefore, the implication for people like Sharon and for me is that we have to seek new ways of increasing the proportion. Yes. And we have to draw in more and more people, you know, because I think even an inundation of only popular culture can also become saccharine, can also become very difficult on the ears and the eyes, and people are looking for new things. I think it's trying to figure out how do we get to that audience, what we do to get to that audience.
And how we find that new stuff to show it. It's not so easy because there's a lot of mediocrity around where we are.
No, we're talking about popular, we're talking about esoteric, right? Now, a taste in art or in music is very, very subjective. But is there something like a universal aesthetic, or the closer you get to this universal aesthetic, it becomes popular?
No, I think it's very personal and it grows, it's a trend. The aesthetics change with times. It's a combination of things. It's the political climate, it is the media, and it is the taste that's being built by many things. I mean, today I have artists who are afraid to do controversial things because of the political climate, but it's fine. I mean, as long as they're doing it somewhere and they're not exhibiting it, you know, they're finding alternatives to say the same things. I think it's a new form, and it's coming from a kind of a repression. It's like what happened in Russia, what happened in China. You know, everything came. There's a lot of good art that's created from when there is a restricted. I think there's a lot of good, fantastic art coming out of the Middle East now because they're so restricted and so tight about everything. So it's absolutely fabulous.
In fact, the greatest music has always come out of the deepest pain and the deepest angst. And so one is increasing the proportion. The second, which Sharon and I both believe very passionately about, is education.
Yes.
One of the very sad things is that I think in education, in schools, even in the best schools, even the best education, I don't think our children are coming out. I didn't certainly come out with great knowledge about Indian art or Indian music. I mean, whatever I knew because my family was into classical music. I really didn't learn anything about it from a school perspective in textbooks. And I was lucky to go to a school which believed in music, so we had exposures, and Spiknik was very active at that point, so we kept getting performances. but outside of that, there is nothing in a systematized form. Similarly, about art, I just recently went to Rajasthan. I mean, I'm looking at some of the frescoes and the paintings in all the beautiful forts and palaces. And you're looking at it, and some part of you is crying that you don't know how to interpret this, you don't know where it comes from.
You know what I feel very strongly is that art and culture, I mean, whether it's music or performing arts or visual arts, they all completely ignore. The syllabus doesn't have it, it's not mandatory. And here, this country has a 3,000 year and more
old
history of
and
fantastic art, and
yet there is not even a basic introduction to Indian art kind of textbook or introduction to Indian culture.
There isn't anything, but that's why we're doing a lot of outreach programs now. We're doing.
And Sharon is doing a lot of, I mean, these talks that you have in the gallery. I think that's really wonderful.
We're doing the talks on classical art and contemporary art, which are formal lectures. But what we're also doing is we're bringing in this entire concept of creativity and thinking out of the box, which is not only in the visual arts or not only in the performing arts, but in all forms of life. And we're asking people from different walks of life who have been successful to come in and talk about the way they've been creative about, because you have to change the system and tweak it a little bit to be successful.
And I think they've had interesting speakers also.
Yeah.
So I'm going to wish you both a lot of wonderful collaborations in the future.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's celebrate that with a
end
piece
this,
of
and
music. Sharon, do you have any requests for him?
Yeah, why not one of our wonderful Telugu pieces?
Yes, I shall play from Annamacharya. I was hoping that she would ask. I'll just play 2 lines from it. I will also say this because I have to have the last word, Anu, as you know, is that I think if there is sincerity and there is a lot of conviction in what you do, art will find its own
level.
It will find its own level and it will find its own audience.
Yes.
So this is Shirabdi Kanyakaku. I'm just playing the first 2 lines because I'm missing somebody singing it from Annamacharya.
Thank you. That's lovely.